Tour guides. I've worked as a tour guide before, but I never creeped on anybody. Or did I? So let's grab a blanket, turn off your lights, for true scary stories with me. What? Whitby Psych Tour Guide. When it comes to strangers, I've been super lucky. When I used to work for Red Cross, I took public transportation all over the city, and would certainly have been screwed if not for the kindness of random people I met on the way. Even this encounter could be considered friendly, but it's just so bizarre. I feel it might be the taste of the Let's Not Meet crowd. I'm a paranormal buff, but more of an I want a believer than a believer. At the age of 12, there were no doubt in my mind that ghosts were real. So when they announced that the old children's wing of Whitby Psychiatric was being torn down to make way for housing, I was convinced it was the perfect time to do a little urban exploring. Today I'm more angered by the fact that Liza Homes put their shitty townhouses all over the historical site. Since my mother is a badass, 6 feet Viking of a woman, she agreed to take me and my best friend to Whitby Psych after school. By the time we arrived, it was probably only 5 p.m. or so. I was really excited by all the old buildings and had to restrain myself from running blindly into the first one I saw. Mom said she didn't really want us to go inside due to the structural issues, which I found hugely disappointing. It was at this point a guy appeared, like some kind of character introduction from a movie. He sort of sidestepped out from behind one of the buildings and did a little wave before coming over to our group. He was thin and looked to be in his early 20s. "You guys here to check out the site? I know the area pretty well, so I can give you a tour if you want." "Ah, tour guide." I was immediately like, "Yes, please." But my mom and friend were more apprehensive. My mom later told me she had sized them up and knew she could take him easily before agreeing to this tour. He took us through every single building, told us their history, discussed the hidden tunnels under the site, and for all intents and purposes acted like a professional guide. Was he even professional? Anyways, as we got the tour, however, I picked up some unusual things about this guy. First, he was constantly hitting on my mother and kept asking all our ages, but when you asked him his age, he always found something else to talk about. Second, he kept changing his name. Third, he mentioned that he practically lived on the premise and told us stories about how he liked to scare kids who went into the buildings. Fourth, he was incredibly insistent that we don't go into the basement of this one building. I wanted to see it, positive that if ghosts were anywhere, it was there. But he got a bit angry at my eagerness. I was only dropped the issue when my mom suggested it was probably unsafe. I remember him grinning at her and saying, "That's it, exactly, very dangerous." Seems plausible, but surely the underground tunnels would have been in far worse conditions, and he offered several times to take us there anyways. Of course, we declined that. After an hour and a half or so, it was getting dark outside, so we went to leave. He walked us to the car, which was the only one in the parking lot, and bid us, mostly my mother, a very good night. We asked how he planned on getting home, to which he responded, "Just gonna walk. It's not far." We figured he was talking about the subdivision that was relatively close, about a 30-minute walk away at the time. Yet as we pulled out of the parking lot, we saw him walking the opposite way up the road. Without trying to be dramatic, I have to point out that there was only one way on the other end of that road, and that's the still active portion of the Whitby Psych facility. I later learned from my aunt, who had been a nurse there, that they had been incredibly understaffed at the time. Due in part to this, it wasn't super rare for some patients to get out of the yard and wander the property before eventually returning themselves or being brought back by one of the guards that patrolled the area. Usually these were patients with bipolar disorder or schizophrenia. It was a bizarre situation that could have gone very badly. 11 years later, I still wonder why he got so upset about the basement in that one building. Welcome to Hollywood. This is a story I never actually told anyone because honestly, I'm still mortified by my poor decision-making skills. When I was 15 years old, I went on a trip to Los Angeles with my mom. As a kid basically raised by television and cinema, I fantasized about one day visiting Hollywood. In my eyes, it looked like the most glamorous and magical place in the world, so I was happy as a pig in shit when we finally got to visit. We began to take in some of the sights, exploring places like Rodeo Drive and Sunset Strip from the top of one of those red tour buses. Earlier that day, we were given a tour of the Kodak Theater, home of the Oscars. I remember all the icons over the years that stood in the exact same spot I was standing at that moment. Typical tourist stuff, I know, but I was in heaven. Of course, that illusion did not last for long. I learned that if you come to Hollywood as a tourist and expect all flashing lights and red carpets on every street, you'll be sorely disappointed. The place began to seem more seedy than enchanting. Gradually, though, I started to prefer this new side to the city I was experiencing. Hollywood was a crazy place full of crazy people, and I loved it. The morbid side of me was fascinated by those bizarre, eccentric, yet at the same time, sad characters. I'd never seen anything like it, except for in the movies, of course. Maybe this was the real Hollywood all along. Anyways, in the midst of my newfound love for the quirkier side of this place, we still had more tours to do. Next up was the Warner Brothers studio. Because we didn't rent a car, most of our traveling was kind of public, We didn't really mind it. There was a bus that could catch from Hollywood Boulevard that would take us near the studio, so we headed towards our stop to wait. Because we were in a tourist hub, obviously we were bombarded with people trying to sell everything bar their left arm to tourists. We got used to it, and sometimes it even worked out. That's how we managed to get on the red bus tour in the first place. We politely declined most sellers while waiting, but couldn't shake off one man who couldn't and wouldn't take no for an answer. He looked about late 50s, early 60s, wore an oversized Hawaiian shirt and straw hat with gray, straggly hair that stopped at his shoulder. Now, right off the bat, I got a bad vibe. Not necessarily because of how he looked. I'm quite the fan of the old Tommy Bahama myself. There was just something off. Before I even could acknowledge him, he immediately confronted us with every single detail of what he was selling. Another LA tour. We told him no thank you. We had already done a Hollywood tour this week, but he wouldn't walk away. Everything the last tour did, he did more of it, and better. And there was plenty of other tours around that he could sell to, but he would not move on. It was as if he needed us to come with him. Where did the last tour bus take you? Oh no, I'll show you everything for half the price. I'm telling you, you're missing out on the deal of a lifetime. I'm the only tour in town that'll bring you right in front of the Hollywood sign. So close you can touch it. You're a fan of Marilyn Monroe? I'll take you to her grave. Yeah, they buried her right in front of that sign. I'll show ya. Another pang of doubt. But apart from that, he honestly began to strike our interest. Yeah, he seemed a little weird, but who on that street didn't? I couldn't be so judgmental, I thought to myself. But we had already made plans, so we told him no for the last time. No thank you, but we're actually be on our way to the Warner Bros. Studio. I'll drop you there after the tour, no charge. Okay, he wore us down. We agreed. He had us follow him down the boulevard to where his tour bus was. That's where we'd be meeting the rest of the passengers. It only took about 5 minutes, but it was the weirdest walk of my life. Don't worry, guys. Everyone around here knows me, okay? I'm gonna ask some of my friends on the way, okay? To let you know I'm a nice guy, okay? Okay. The first person he went to was a young girl behind a ticket booth. Couldn't have been older than 17 or 18 years old. You know me, don't ya? I'm just showing these ladies here that I'm alright. You know me, yeah? She looked absolutely baffled and could only muster out a yeah? Another pang. I have no idea why we didn't just turn around there and then. His next friend was a police officer across the road. He waved to the officer, who slightly raised his palm. See? Police know me too. Anyways, here's my car. Car. Our bus that was supposed to share with fellow tourists was now a filthy rundown white saloon. What happens next still to this day makes me want to punch myself in the face for my sheer stupidity. See, me and my mom are two people who never learned to say no. Clearly, the prospect of not seeming polite was far scarier than anything else to us at the time. He stared us down, waiting for us to get in the back of his car. I'm ashamed to say we did. So me and my mom sat down, looked at each other, and said the same thing we've both been thinking the whole time. Nope. I'd seen too many horror movies to know this is the part where the audience screams at the idiots on the screen. What the heck are you doing? Get the heck out of there. I normally shout while thinking how unrealistic it was. No one could possibly be that dumb. Well, he sat down in the driver's seat at the same time I got out, and my mom tried to think of an excuse for a sudden departure. What? No! Was all I heard him say before starting the car with my mom still inside it. Mom, get out of that car now! Was all I remember saying, and luckily she did, before he could take off with her still in the back seat. We quickly headed towards our bus stop, when a few seconds later, all we heard from behind was his booming voice following us. What's your problem? Are you scared of me? Are you scared of me? Ladies, why are you leaving? I showed you I was trustworthy. What's your deal? I want to give you a better deal. You scared of me? And with what was a stroke of friggin' luck, our bus had pulled in just in time. We jumped on without looking back at him, headed to Warner Bros., tried to convince ourselves what had just happened never did. Maybe he just really needed the sale. My mom tries to see good in every single person. Yeah, maybe, I replied, but you do realize he never actually sold us any tickets in the first place. Also, there was no way he could bring us that close to the Hollywood sign. Also, I'm pretty sure Marilyn Monroe was never buried right in front of it. And maybe that's where he was gonna bury us. I was half joking, half petrified. My mom still thought I was overreacting to the whole situation. No man in their right mind would carry out that in such a public place. But he wasn't really a man in his right mind, was he? Who knows? Maybe he was actually just another seemingly creepy yet innocent guy trying to make a living. But I still can't help but wonder what would have happened had we stayed in the car. We get those pangs of fear for a reason. Needless to say, I'm no longer scared of forsaking my gut instinct at the risk of seeming impolite. Somehow spending your last day with a potential creeper seems a lot scarier. So, Tommy Bahama tour guide, let's not meet. I know you made my life feel like a movie for a short second, but not that type of movie that I was hoping for. Scary Tijuana story. This happened in 2000 or 2001. I just moved to SoCal for college. My roommates and I, both male, early 20s, thought it would be fun to drive into Mexico because it was not that far away, maybe a couple hours, and we had never been. One Saturday late morning, we made the drive in Tijuana, got to a bar restaurant. It was around 1 or 2 p.m. We ate tacos and drank a lot of beer and tequila. We got pretty faded at this place. I think we had cigars too. After a couple hours, we exited onto the street pretty drunk and in very good spirits. It was still daylight time, maybe mid-afternoon. I think our plan was to hang out a while longer and then drive back home at dusk once we sobered up a bit. We were approached on the street by a very friendly Hispanic man. He was very short, maybe 5'2", Joe Pesci style, approximately 30s in age and stocky. He was literally dressed like Lewis from Revenge of the Nerds, white dress shirt button all the way up, tucked in, trousers hiked up high, flooding socks showing, etc. He may have also had glasses on. He was very friendly and presented himself as a tour guide. Hey, you guys not from around here? Let me show you the local spots kind of presentation. My first impression was very friendly, and we disregarded him and said, nah, thank you. I did notice that although he was dressed like a stereotypical nerd, he had some pretty hardcore tattoos on his neck. Still was not scared of him, just did not care for his services. We just kept walking, and we're in a busy part of town with a lot of people, so we're not really concerned about him at all. But he kept on us, just following us around, trying to make chit-chat about what bars, clubs were the best. It just seemed like he was a promoter or something of that sort. We were kind of aimlessly walking, and he began to recommend different strip joints, which we also disregarded. Slowly, it seemed we were making more into the outskirts of town unknowingly. I don't know how this happened, but he was always right there, following us. I don't recall how, but he was finally able to get us interested in a strip joint. He pointed it out and said it was the best or something. Maybe just because he was relentless, we agreed to walk over and go inside. Oddly, we couldn't go in as my roommate did not have his ID on him when we had just been there drinking without issue. We ultimately walked away from this place, and the follower began to ask if we had any interest in drugs, and he rattled off the name of a few. This was the first time he had mentioned drugs like an idiot. I said I was interested in the drugs he mentioned. He said, follow me, and then led us towards a nearby bar, which was now really on the outskirts of town. On the walk over, my roommate quietly asked what the heck I was doing buying drugs from this guy, but we continued. I told him it was fine. We walked into the shitty 2-story bar, and he told my roommate to wait at the bar. He and I walked into the bathroom. I recall going into a bathroom stall with him and him asking how much drugs I wanted. I said $20 worth, which was all the money I had on me. I gave him the 20, and the bathroom door opened shortly thereafter. Some other random guy came in and gave the tour guide a small bag of drugs, which he then gave to me. I looked at it quickly and it seemed legit. I put it in my pocket. Well, I guess it's time to get out of there, right? Well, this guy is kind of in my way. So I make a move to pass him and say thank you. He said something like, hold on a second. What about the 20 you owe me? I said I already gave it to you, and he reached into his pocket and pulled out a pathetic crumpled $1 bill and said, nah, you just gave me $1, man. I literally was shitting my pants at this time. I told him I didn't have any more money, which was true. The bathroom door opened, and my roommate walked in and began to use the urinal on the other side of us. I felt relief he was nearby. The tour guide was telling me something about, does your friend have money? I told him I didn't know. The tour guide suggested that we go to the ATM. I agreed, told my roommate to follow us. We were now back in the street in daylight, following him to an ATM. My roommate didn't understand what was going on. I was whispering to him to give me $20, but he was saying he didn't have it. He may have suspected something weird was going down. We were getting back into a part of town with more people on the street, which was comforting. I asked my roommate to just give me $20 so I can get this guy off of our back. He finally gave me $20. Just as we were nearing an ATM, I turned confidently to the tour guide and gave him the $20 with a remark like, here's the $20, now fuck off. He immediately grabbed the $20 and shoved it in his pocket. He demanded more money. We began walking away from him in another direction, but towards a populated shopping area. He stuck right behind us and was saying scary things I can't remember. He seized my right wrist, where I had a watch on that cost about $150. I wrenched my arm away from him, and we kept walking at a brisk pace, now with a lot of people around. I quickly took the watch off and put it in my cargo shorts pocket. We passed by a market, and 2 Hispanic males exited in front of us and past them. The tour guide yelled to them, "Cholos!" and spoke to them briefly, and then all 3 of them were running at us suddenly. The Cholos pinned me to the wall of the sidewalk, and the tour guide approached and put a big ballpoint pen to my neck. It hurt. One of the Cholos began looking at the watch, and I stopped him and simply retrieved it and gave it to him. Once this happened, they fought for it, and my roommate and I ran away. I looked over my shoulder, and they were literally fighting each other for this watch. We got to our car, tossed the drugs, drove back across the border safely. I only been back to Mexico one other time since, and that time was also not a good experience. So, tour guide and Cholos, let's not meet again.